Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, seen each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce McKenzie Dillingham. And McKenzie, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world, or LinkedIn, or wherever you're watching us. And that's McKenzie. Mackenzie Dillingham has spent over a decade in the luxury custom home industry in Western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina. After graduating college, she moved back to Asheville, beginning her career as project manager for one of the area's best luxury home builders. She believes in building a trusting relationship throughout the construction process and being present for all aspects of the project. When not at work, Mackenzie spends her time in Weaveville with her wife and baby boy. She built a home in 2014 and enjoys projects around the house and gardening. And she also is very active in the nonprofit community, as we'll see in just a little bit. And the question, first of all, I'll ask you, Mackenzie, is I think you told me this off the air. You were actually born in, or you were from Asheville?
Yes, I am a ninth generation Buncombe County native, so I can count my heritage back 9 generations. On my dad's side in Barnardsville, there's actually a small community called Dillingham, North Carolina. So when you travel the Blue Ridge Parkway and head north and you stop at the ranger station that overlooks Craggy, there's only one city on that map, and it is Dillingham, North Carolina.
Because, thank you for teaching me that. But also, I think you're the very first person. Occasionally, I'll meet somebody who's born and raised in Asheville, but you're the first person, 9 generations. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
probably is that the longest you've ever heard anybody?
So far, other than my close family, who similarly are also from here, we have a 800-page Dillingham book of our whole genealogy that a family member put together. So, yeah.
Because I was once told that, what is it, only 1 out of 10 people or even less are from Asheville, that who live here. So one of the great things when we moved here, we didn't know anybody, but it's very easy to meet people because nobody else is born here excepting you. We're 800 people, 800 Dillinghams if they're floating around somewhere. So I'll know that. So as a kid, you grew up in the area. Did you always know you wanted to be in construction?
I had no idea. Um, my dad sold insurance. My mom worked at a preschool and a bank for a while, and then helped raise us at home. And I always thought I'd be an artist, or at one point I dabbled in clothing design. So I thought I'd be doing more art, and then I stumbled into some drawing architectural kind of stuff that got me started, and I can go into that a little more, but I built a lot of tree houses and things as a kid, but never thought that would be my ultimate career choice.
How old were you when you built the first tree house?
Oh gosh. As soon as I could hold a hammer, 5, 8, I don't know. Yeah, started with lean-tos and made my way up the trees.
So did you just pick that up on your own, or did you study it, or did somebody teach you?
No, I mean my dad we like to spend time outside. I grew up on 25 acres of family land, and so anytime I had the chance I would be outdoors, and that was just something I like to do. And having a tree house with my own space was just extra cool, and kind of learned it myself with a little bit of dad's help.
Now it's too bad. I assume we don't still have that tree house. Is that floating around?
We don't, but the cool part is my sister just finished her home on the exact spot that my first one was built. So
Okay. I'm thinking, you'll build one for the baby. How old's your baby?
he just turned 1.
Okay, so in a couple of years he'll get his you'll build him a tree house. Which wouldn't that be cool?
100%.
Or have him help you do it. So you then were always kind of good into building stuff and working with tools and stuff. Did you go to school for it?
I did. So as I kind of alluded to, in high school, I dabbled in drafting and design classes,
Right.
and ended up drafting a whole house that got built as my senior project for a couple out in Barnardsville, actually. It's the Never Ending Flower Farm if you want to go check out their business. And it's a U-pick flower farm, and their home on the property I designed in high school. And so that was my first inkling that I really loved this kind of design work and home building in particular, because it's a little more artistic, I feel, than some of the commercial work. And I thought I'd be an architect, and I got tired of sitting in front of a computer. So I went to Western Carolina University to major in construction management and business administration.
And when you built that house in high school, I'm very impressed. Who actually? So you did the design for it. Who actually built it?
The homeowners did their own contracting. So in that particular instance, I just designed that house and drew it. And then, I went off to college, and they finished that home themselves.
Did it get built the way you had envisioned it?
It did.
Yeah. Oh, is that cool?
Yeah.
So you did that. So then you went to college, and your experience reminds me, I had just the opposite experience kind of. When I was in high school, you had to take a shop class, and that was not my thing. I guess, I don't know, did you ever take a shop class when you were, did they still have them when you were
No,
in
they
school?
do, but I didn't take one. No.
Yeah, because I remember it, as you talked about it, I remember it to this day, Mackenzie, that I built it was a key holder, I think. It was a terrible key holder, but that's the maybe the first thing and last thing I ever built. So you went to college. When did you start then building houses?
So the program at Western was mostly focused on highway construction and commercial, but I still really wanted to do homes because I felt like they were more creative and more artistic for me. And I actually had a hard time at school because I was really good at it, but they really wanted me to continue. They wanted me to continue in the program that they had designed, which was commercial and highways, and I wouldn't have it. So my first year of internship possibilities, I found a company called Morgan Keefe Builders in Arden. They had a female COO that I interviewed with, and we clicked, and she offered me the job for the summer. And I really enjoyed it. It was super high-end luxury homes and very artistic, no two homes the same. And I was sold. So that's how I got here.
Well, so you then worked with her during an internship. When did you start your own company?
So I worked with Morgan Keefe for 11 years.
Oh,
So I grew up through them. It was two summers of internship, and then strangely enough, I graduated in 2009, right as the economy had tanked. But Asheville, of course, people want to be here, and so the home building industry continued to do well. And they said we still need help, and so they hired me on, and I stayed there for the next 9 years or 10 years. And then I opened my own firm 2 years ago.
so when you were with them, and even now with your own firm, so you were more involved with the luxury home market, is that correct?
Correct.
And so, what is luxury home?
In our instance, it was, I started when I first started building homes, I wasn't touching anything under $2 million. Elevators, wine rooms, bars, you name it, TVs that come out of ceilings, out of floors, smart homes, infinity pools, whatever you might dream of. So it's more of a dream home than a luxury home, probably.
Is that what you still do? You work with people in terms of the dream homes?
Yeah, so now my company, I am the sole owner and have no employees. I'm a general contractor only. So since I do that on my own, I keep it a little smaller than that company was doing. So I do a lot of high-end remodel work. So in the same sort of homes I was building before, I can come in and do a lot of that remodel. And then I'll do a smaller size custom home building for new construction.
And describe the process, if you would, Mackenzie, in terms of if somebody wants a home. Again, I've never built a home from scratch or rebuilt a home from scratch. What takes place? They meet with you, and then describe what happens.
Typically, if you're building from scratch, you would in a custom home process, ideally you would have an architect and sometimes an interior designer involved. So those people would go ahead and have the plans and specifications ready, and they would reach out to builders. So it would come to me with your design somewhat already started. and then I would look that over with you, and we would begin pricing that work and look at your lot, make a plan, schedule. When we agree on cost and schedule, I would get started. So I do everything from grading. So I'll pull the permits, start grading the lot until the point that I hand you the keys. That sometimes even includes, the landscaping work and stuff.
And describe the process then, which is kind of cool. So instead of then me having to hire 27 different people and being responsible for 27 different people, that's where you come in play?
I hire 27 people and
Yeah.
I am responsible for 27 different people. Yeah. And that's the part I also love about it is there's logistics and management, and it's always every house is different in the custom world, So, yeah, so I hire all the subs and vendors. So if you buy products, I buy them, get them delivered to the job site, make sure they all show up. So it's pretty hands off for a homeowner if they wish to be.
Right.
Some homeowners choose to be more involved, but often, they can just leave it to me.
How difficult is it from your standpoint, Mackenzie, in terms of hiring all these people? As you read about labor market is tough in terms of hiring people. Are you finding that also?
Yes, in a general sense. So right now I am using a lot of guys that I've worked with for many years. So we have a relationship. So it's easy for me to keep them on projects and keep them busy, but they are having a hard time keeping folks in their company. So like an electrician, I may have a really good relationship with a head electrician, but his helpers and folks that are in his business are a little more fluid than other places. And so sometimes it's just, man hours and people on the job site's a little hard to keep staffed highly. And Asheville, I think, is even um, has a higher percentage of trouble with that just because of we've got so many folks wanting to come and so many houses going up.
So that's, I guess, kind of a good thing for you, but it's also a pain in the neck thing for you, in terms of the houses want to go up, but sometimes you have to be, I guess, realistic in terms of how quickly it can go up.
Sure. And I start that conversation now with all of my clients that, what took me 6 months before will take me 8 or 10 now. And it's not only just labor, it's also a lot of supplies. And 1 month it might be that steel is hard to get a hold of, and then 2 months later it's refrigerators. So, a lot of clients wish to be in a place where they can predict what's going to happen. That was never the case pre-COVID. It certainly is not the case today.
Well, even as you said, pre-COVID, was that when all of a sudden the lumber prices started going crazy? And that changed things. That I guess if you're buying a house, you have to be realistic that your price might not always stay the same. Even the prices become fluid at times, do they? In terms of
They do, yeah. So my price scheduling now, I keep everything is in the industry is what we call cost plus,
right.
just because there's no way from the beginning of a job to the end of a job to be able to hold any sort of estimates anymore. And it's unfortunate for some clients, but most people are pretty understanding. I mean, if, they know the market.
Now all of a
Now, all of
sudden,
a sudden,
hopefully the market's changing a little bit now, right? That 6 months ago it was like impossible to buy anything in Asheville or even build, but all of a sudden it's shifting a little bit.
slowly, and I believe you'll see it shift slower in Asheville than you might see in markets throughout the country. Again, we are one of the places that everyone wants to come. So housing is still very on the top priority for folks here, whether they are selling to make a profit or they're just moving in town. I keep telling my clients, they're like, well, should I just wait and all the costs will go down? But I don't see that is a good idea either, because it could go either way. And I don't see it going down because we're such a popular place to be.
Yeah. And even when people do that, it seems to me kind of stupid because if you want a house, you want a house, not to wait, 2 years or 5 years, and who knows what's going to happen then,
Right.
As well. When you were with the other firm, that's quite a long time, 11 years. There were a lot of people working at that firm, right? Or you weren't the only one. There were other people working there.
Correct. I had 18 other coworkers.
So how is it then? That's quite a shift from working with 18 other people to being, by yourself here. How do you feel about that?
It actually wasn't. So they are the way they structured their company. They're also solely a general contractor. So there weren't a lot of labor
Oh,
people running around. Everyone did almost everyone did what I did, which was manage a project. And so what they would do is they would turn over an entire house to a project manager, such as myself, and we would run that house from estimating to the keys no differently than I do now. The only difference in owning my own company is now I'm my own sales force. I am my own accountant. I am my own estimator. So I'm wearing a few more hats. But as far as the actual building process goes, none of that's really changed at all.
It must be very exciting for you to go through the whole process, and then when you turn it over, like, let me ask you, in terms of somebody working with you now, how long does that process typically take?
It really depends on the home. I mean, in the larger luxury home industry, it was 12 to 24 months were most of my homes. Um, but right now, I can certain sized remodels. I'm doing 6 to 10 months. Um, so
It must be very exciting for you when you complete the project, and as you said, give the keys to the person. That must be quite an experience for you, when that happens.
yeah, I think my actual favorite time of the job is the first day we turn the power on and the lights come on. So I get to see it before everybody else. We flip the power on, and all of a sudden, all your hard work is like lit as if the homeowner would be living there as well. And so it's just a really cool time to be in there. So
In the homes you built, I'm just curious, because we just installed a generator for the first time. Do you install a lot of generators?
yeah, probably 60% of the time.
Yeah. So I imagine a luxury home, that would be kind of a nice thing to have when you have a luxury home. You know,
Sure. Yep.
it just gave us tremendous peace of mind, to have this. I guess fortunately we only had to use it once, so my hope is we'll never get to use it, but it's a nice thing to have. What's the biggest challenge you have running this one-person operation, and being a luxury home builder in the Asheville area?
Currently, it's as I mentioned, just the scheduling and logistics of workforce and materials. But as a broader thing, it's wearing all the hats, so I can say I'm pretty great at the actual building part, and then it's wearing all the extra office hats that is probably pretty challenging.
Do you have people having a negative reaction to working with you as a woman builder in the Asheville area? Is that a problem?
If they have one, I have not seen it face to face. I would imagine it does take people a moment to check me out or talk to my references or whatnot. But so far, I've not had any personal experience with that being a direct problem.
By the way, you're mentioning something interesting here that some people might want to think about, and that's in terms of, if I work with a Mackenzie Dillingham, or if I work with anybody else, how do you check out a builder?
So you should always ask for references. And not just from other clients, but you could also, if you're concerned about, if it's a smaller company and you're concerned about money, you can also talk to, like, I'll often, like, if I'm hiring a new roofer, I'll call the local roofing supply place and ask about this person. Do they pay their bills? That kind of thing. So there's some basic questions folks can ask, but always checking references is definitely the best way to go about it.
Because some people, it's funny, in some industries, say they don't want to give out the references, or they don't want people to be bothered. But if people ask you for a reference, you'll give one? You'll give a
Absolutely.
couple?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you encourage them to look at the house, or do you take them to look at some of the houses you built?
Yeah, so depending on what I'm doing, I can do house tours. I often will have an interview prior. We can hop on a Zoom because that's, everybody's doing that now. And we can go through my website and look at portfolio photos or talk about how I estimate. So I'll do a pre-interview, and then we'll meet on, oftentimes, by the time clients are talking to me, they have a project, like a site. So we'll meet out on a project site. We can talk about how the house would be situated. Then we get feeling more comfortable with each other. And they might say, oh, well, we've interviewed 3 other people and no one's mentioned that particular thing. And so, you can kind of start feeling folks out on how they're creative and responsive to you in that process.
Do you help people find the site as well?
I have. I've worked with real estate agents who have folks that are from Florida or Colorado or wherever they can't get here. And so I'll go with the realtor to a couple of lots and be like, oh, this one has too many rocks. This one's too steep. And then I'll even go as far as enlisting geotechnical services or surveyors to help folks make that decision before they spend the money.
Because the process, as you're describing it, seems to involve lots of other people as well. In other words, um, it's like mind-boggling. That's why I've never gone that route. But to build a house, you need to get buy-in, I guess, from a lot of different people, and then the city. And let me ask you that in general too. Asheville, is it easy to build a house with respect to the city of Asheville, or difficult, or just part of the job?
Yeah, I think they are. I've worked in, a dozen counties. People say that some are worse than others, but I don't see that. It just depends on what kind of house you're working on, But yeah, Asheville is has a great permit and planning office. So does Buncombe County. So I don't have any qualms with the folks on that side of the team.
And I guess that's where you get paid the big bucks to deal with all that paperwork. Is that correct? Do you also?
That is the confusing part for a lot of people. So it is definitely that's why you need a general contractor, a licensed professional that has been through all those hoops, because that's where you can really stub your toe and get caught up.
What causes delays in some construction projects?
Clients.
How so?
Um, yeah, I mean, as funny as that is, it's probably true, because many clients make changes mid-project, and especially in this economy, when it takes 20 months to get a set of windows and last minute someone might say, oh, never mind, I want to make that a door. That just stops everything. That's always been the case throughout my career, is that clients sometimes hang things up just because they overthink. So that's why I always, especially in the luxury home side, advocate for my clients to have an interior designer or an architect, so somebody can help them early on and we can make those decisions and they can move forward quickly and not slow things down.
Mackenzie, before we shift gears a little bit, let me just ask you, in terms of reaching MG Dillingham, what's the best bet people can do if they want to reach you or find out more about what you can do in terms of helping them build a house? How do they reach you?
Yeah, so check out my website. It's www.mgdillingham.com, and that's www.mgdillingham.com. You can see it here.
Right. No periods, right? No
No
periods.
periods,
Right.
correct. And then my email is mckenzie@mgdillingham.com, and that's McKenzie @mgdillingham.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me. There's a link on my website that'll email me, or you can email me directly.
And when they go to the website, they'll see a lot of your past projects and things you've done.
Yeah, there's portfolio work on there, and there's my bio, more information about me, my consulting, and of course my nonprofit work.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that in the remaining time. So in your spare time, I call it spare time, you're also raising a baby, a 1 year old, not a baby anymore, but a 1 year old, and you're also very active. I was impressed with, actually, you're involved in two things, and I'll talk about each one. You were telling me off the air, you also you're a musician of sorts. Is that correct?
Yeah, I play the mandolin and the guitar a little bit in a little folky girl band that plays a lot of like church gospel old bluegrass music.
How'd you get into that?
When I was a young kid, I made a New Year's resolution that I was going to teach myself guitar, and that's what happened.
And you learned? Did you take any lessons in either of them, or you just learned them
I
yourself?
didn't. I didn't. I taught myself offline.
Okay, very cool. They tell me also people can learn music stuff on YouTube videos as well. But I guess it'd be hard to learn construction on a YouTube video. But you could
I wouldn't
learn,
advise that.
but you could learn music on a YouTube video.
I think so. Yeah, I didn't. YouTube wasn't around when I first started, but yeah, for sure. There's all kinds of lessons on YouTube.
Well, something to even the mandolin. You just pick that up on your own.
Yeah, the band I was playing in, all three girls played the guitar, and I said, well, somebody's got to do something different. And so I went and taught myself the mandolin so that I could just change it up a little bit.
Okay, very cool. And then in addition to all that stuff, you're also now involved in, I think it's what, Haywood Street Congregation?
Yeah, so I that's how I went to church at Haywood Street Congregation playing music for their Wednesday service for a while with some friends of mine, and they have recently opened Haywood Street Community Development.
Right.
It's a sister organization, so we're totally separate legally, but it's a sister program for affordable housing, and I'm the chair of the board of that group.
Well, even then, you were telling me off the air how you got involved is kind of interesting. I think you started out as secretary.
Yeah, so when they thought up affordable housing years ago, they proposed it to me that they were going to start a board a few years ago and said, would you be our secretary? And I said, sure, and joined up. And then we have since created a full board of 20 members all over the community with different kinds of backgrounds. And that's now what I chair. It's the larger board.
What's cool about the organization, but also problematic about it, is it's cool, first of all, that a congregation or church would get involved in this kind of thing, in terms of seeing its mission. I'm very impressed with Haywood Street Congregation that they want to provide affordable housing. Is that rare for a church to be involved in that kind of activity?
In this area, probably. I don't know of another church doing it directly right now, but we actually started our organization based off of a church in Ohio called Church for All People. You've had Brian Combs on your show before. He and Steve Noblet, the director at Haywood Street, or was the director for a while, went to Ohio and sort of checked these folks out, and we're like, we love what they're doing here. And that's kind of how we've based Haywood Street Community Development off of what they're doing. So there are churches in the country that are doing it. I don't know anybody super locally.
Because the nice thing about your group, and I commend you so much, is the fact that you're doing this, but for some reason, there's resistance to it. There's some resistance to it. And why that is so is just incredible. Wouldn't you think you'd want to have affordable housing for everybody, including people who live in Asheville, people who work in Asheville? Yet, I guess that's something you have to deal with, the fact that certain people are opposed to it.
Sure. We, as a native to Asheville, I am very cognizant of the fact that what keeps our city running are the people that are washing the dishes, the folks that are driving the Ubers, the people who are making minimum wage. They keep the tourists coming to the places that they want to come to. So we knew that it wasn't just homeless shelters that were needed, it was affordable housing to bridge that gap. So there's folks like Homeward Bound and all those folks who are working towards homeless housing, and then we wanted to have truly deeply affordable housing for folks that were the working poor, but they have some income, they may just be disabled, and they just need a place to live.
And so how is that coming along in terms of president of the board? And I like what you said, it's not just for the people who are homeless, these people just need to live and work in Asheville. What kind of progress are you making on that?
So we have had an unprecedented partnership with Dogwood Health Trust, Buncombe County, and Asheville City. Everybody has donated money to the cause. It's around a $10 million project, and we have had partnerships with them that have gotten us the land and donations to get started on the project to secure loans. We're still working on raising another almost 1.1 million to put a shovel in the ground, but we're on parallel tracks. We're wrapping up some grant funding. We're working with Givens Estate is going to be our property manager. So they'll handle, once people are moved in, everyday management of the facility.
I mean, that's really exciting that you have all these different groups working together. Because when you mentioned Givens, it doesn't seem to be their usual thing, but they're going to be property management is great. And I assume we know a company that might help a little bit with the design of this project a little bit, or might help in,
Yes, we've got a company called Flagram Architecture. I think they're out a little more east, and they have already got us design drawings. So if you check out Haywood Street's website, haywoodstreet.org/housing, you can see some of our schematic designs of how the structure will look. And so we're almost wrapped up with plans. It's just a matter of raising that last little bit of money, getting permits, and putting a shovel in the ground.
And I was also thinking another firm, McKenzie Dillingham, might be involved a little bit in helping out on that, But that is so cool. So I commend you for this project. It's just mind-boggling that
Thank you.
in your spare time you can be doing this also. And what's so cool about it, it's the dichotomy, in terms of on one end you're building residential homes, and on the other end you're helping people who can't afford residential homes, and I think that's really cool. So you have to do me a favor. Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
When you put the shovel into the ground, let me know and we'll do another show on that. That'd be
Absolutely.
so exciting. We'll just do a show on that. Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Mackenzie, for being my guest this first half hour on the Blaine's World Show. I'll give you one more time to give contact information if people want to get in touch with you. And I like how you said it. It's not just for new construction, but also remodel if they want to upgrade or change their home around. Best bet is to contact you, and what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can reach me at my website, www.mgdillingham.com. And you can find out more about Haywood Street off a link on there as well. And there's also a place that you can email me directly. So it was great talking to you, Blaine. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on board, and very impressed, like I said, with the work of not only your company, but also thank you for doing work for Haywood Street Congregation, a really good group of folks, and I'm glad you're part of it. Speak to you soon.
Thanks so much.
We'll even meet sometime in person. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Be
Thank
well.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
And as Mackenzie works her way out of the studio, we'll bring in our next guest. And before I introduce her, I should mention to folks who are watching the Blaine's World Show, we're heard here on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, YouTube, a whole bunch of other places as well. And I'd like to introduce my second guest, and she is Laura McCall, Executive Director of the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, also known as AIR or AIR.
AIR.
And you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world, or if you're watching, that is Laura. And I should mention that before moving to Asheville, Laura spent her career in Washington, D.C., L.A., Philadelphia, Charleston, West Virginia, and Tanzania. You get around a little bit, huh? You've been in a couple different places. She's been involved in nonprofit groups as a consultant on HIV and AIDS for the state of West Virginia. In Charleston, she co-launched the Division of Community and Corporate Education for a community college, which led to a new position advising community colleges across Appalachia on the entrepreneurial mindset. Laura is the founding vice president of Suited Change, a nonprofit serving historically marginalized women, and the owner of altwriting.com. I'll have to tell you a little bit about that, a writing and editing service. And she's been in Asheville now for a couple of years, but you're with the this group relatively a short period of time. Is that correct?
This will be 2 months, the end of this week. Yes.
Let me ask you the question. So you grew up in a whole bunch of different areas. Is that true? You would say?
I grew up as an adult. I'm actually from North Carolina, from Lenore.
Yeah.
And went to UNC Chapel Hill. So some fans at Chapel Hill. And then I left the state, and all those other places were my adult.
Well, when you were a kid then growing up in North Carolina, did you always know you wanted to be the executive director of a restaurant nonprofit association?
I always wanted to know I wanted to contribute. I come from a family of strong community service contributors. My dad, a banker, my mom originally a school teacher. My memory of growing up was we always had guests from other places around the world or in the United States in our home. And I think that just led me to want to be involved in the community and open my home and my life to others as well.
As a kid, did you like to eat out in restaurants?
Growing up, we did. I have good memories of going out to restaurants. I think because my dad being in banking, that was a part of his world, is being out in public. Yeah.
Now, do you cook as well?
I love to cook, but my son is a better cook.
Is he
So,
really?
yeah.
So he's the cook in the family. So you had all these other positions. What brought you to Asheville? I mean, what brought you to not only Asheville, but to this particular position?
Okay, so when my kids were out of the house, my daughter's going back to law school, my son's finishing up at University of Kentucky. It's like, what did mom want to do? And mom wanted a new place. From my background, you can see I like change. I like different things. And the opportunity was, I think I need to stay on the East Coast. The East Coast is just my favorite place to be. I love to travel, but the mountains. So I looked for something in the mountains. And I first came with the entrepreneurship group and worked with community colleges, and then found my way. That during COVID changed, the parameters of what that job looked like. And I got lucky with this one. It went online. I immediately applied, and the more I learned about air, the more I wanted to do it.
And let's talk about that process, because it is kind of interesting in that I assume other people have had this position. How long has the association been involved?
So we're going to celebrate our 20th year next year. So we're
And I
very
assume
excited.
other people before you had restaurant or food backgrounds?
Jane Anderson had a great healthcare background.
Okay,
So
that's right.
running,
Yeah, I knew
running
too.
things, managing things. She was with the chamber when the air started, and the early folks that started air, Michelle Bedane is still involved, asked her to come over many years into air being a thing. Once they had funding to be able to support an executive director, Jane came over and spent 9 years. And then Kim Murray, who owns Creekside, after Jane retired, came in as interim director before me.
Okay, explain then, if you would, for the folks who aren't familiar with it, what is the concept of an independent restaurant association?
So for us, it's kind of exciting. We're the only independent restaurant association in all of North Carolina. We do have some sister organizations across the country. It's my goal to kind of get to know them and see what they do. But for us, you have to be incorporated in Buncombe County and have your main presence here in Buncombe County. So and we also have to have brick and mortar. So I love food trucks, but I can't have them as members. I also love folks who bring an independent here, but maybe they incorporate somewhere else. So if that's the case, we call them restaurant affiliates, and we can still have them under our umbrella, and they can still benefit from everything that we offer. And then we also have partners and sponsors. So partners, anybody loves us and wants to help out and is tied to the industry in some way, but members are specific to Buncombe County.
And the thing that amazed me when I first heard about the association was the fact that Buncombe County, but especially Asheville, is just the home, it seems, of independent restaurants, and I had never seen anything like that. I'd grown up, lots of chain restaurants, some independents, but Asheville has ballpark. How many independent restaurants?
I wish I could give you a number. I have 150 members. There's probably another 150, Blaine, I could go after. And for those listening, I will come find you. Yeah.
But that's I think kind of cool in that for a town this size, that's a pretty good number, would you say, of independent
It's an
restaurants?
amazing number. And it's because, Mackenzie had mentioned it. Tourists is one thing, but we have an amazing loyal locals, we like to say, and locals like to eat and support independence. We're a city of small businesses, not just in the restaurant and food and beverage industry, but in so many ways. We're a city of small businesses. So that collaborative spirit, I think, goes through our industry as well.
And talk about this, because I should know it, but I guess I don't, that it seems, at least in the city of Asheville, it's almost completely dominated by independent restaurants as opposed to chains. Is that by design, or is that the Asheville Council has anything to do with that? How come that's so?
I think it's been, industry friendly in terms of starting businesses. There is a collaborative spirit here. I believe very highly that, somebody doesn't say, oh, you're bringing an Italian restaurant, that I can't do that. I mean, I feel like the more I've learned about this industry, and particularly air, I keep using the word collaborative, one, because it's in our mission statement, but two, it really does exist. There's enough of everything for everybody. And I think you feel that with our restaurants. And so there are chains, and that's fine, but the independents are just very special. And I think, when we have travel and leisure and the Yelp survey coming out saying we're the #1 food city in the country, people want to eat here. And I think it's pretty exciting that they get all these dining experiences from our members.
And even as you say, when I think about downtown Asheville, and I can kind of just walk it through in my mind, you see very few chain restaurants. Almost every block, there are all these independent restaurants, which is really cool.
Yeah.
What makes it a restaurant independent? You said it had to have a brick and mortar.
Brick and mortar, they had to be incorporated. For us, they had to be incorporated in Buncombe County and maintain their corporate or their main presence in Buncombe County. So I'll give you an example. My chair of our board is Carolyn Roy, and who owns Biscuit Head. So It started here. They have three stores here, or three restaurants here. And then there's one not here in Greenville. So the three can be our members. If it's outside, no.
Well, I think Biscuit Head is a great example because when you mention restaurants, talk a little bit about the fact that it's restaurants, but there are many different kinds of restaurants, and so when I think of Biscuit Head, which I love, it's a brick and mortar, but it's not a sit down, 3-4 course dinner meal, but it's a great place. Right. So describe some of your members that aren't just traditional restaurants.
When people ask me like, what's your fave or
Right.
like this, describe it, I'm going to do my best. And those are my members. Please forgive me if I don't do my best at this question. We really try to reach out in the last short while to get as many different cultural dining experiences as you can have. So we have the Latino community represented. I'm working with someone there to help expand that community for us and us help be a voice for them. Well, certainly a lot of Italian restaurants, a lot of an independent, like a Biscuit Head with an interesting concept. Sunny Point, which you saw expand during, COVID, and they're doing even more now. We have we have the James Beard Award winners, Curate and Chai Pani are both members of ours. We have Pisano and Rhubarb and all the ones, on the square downtown and Lobster Trap. And it just goes on and on. You can get amazing seafood, you can get amazing American, you get amazing Italian. It's just endless. And I think, that's fun to just every night it could be something different.
One of the things that was, I think, made me very grateful for was the fact that even with COVID, it seemed the restaurant industry did better than I thought it would. In other words, I think I told you off the air, one of my favorite independent restaurants was a place called Korean House. And it was right opposite the park. It's just a great, great place. But other than that, there are a few other restaurants that closed. But overall, we did amazingly well getting through it. Would you say that's true from what you've heard?
Absolutely. I think there's several reasons why. AIR was lucky enough to be joining up with a business work group that was started by the county manager's office. So on that, there's the chamber, there's, Asheville the Arts Council, there's us, there's just all kinds of folks in that group. And we still meet weekly. Jane Anderson, our former director, was meeting daily during COVID. So it was this on the spot information for people of what's going on. That bled into AIR being able to lobby on capacity issues and outdoor dining. That was a huge thing for us to try to keep the doors open, helping with supply issues if there were, fielding at least 50 calls a month from members throughout the year and a half period, helping sustain and sometimes hold hands and get people through. You saw businesses maybe closing one spot, but keeping one open and able to manage their staff. We lost very few restaurants in Asheville during that time.
By the way, something you mentioned is kind of interesting when I think about it. And you mentioned outdoor dining. And I've become a fan of outdoor dining. But it's amazing that during COVID, it expanded so greatly, but so nicely. Like what's the one street that closed or it had all outdoor dining now? It's by Wall Street.
You're talking about near the Grove, near oops, there went my lighting. Near the Grove, the Grove Arcade, that whole area.
That whole area, but then the street went across over where the breakfast place is. The name is escaping me, but they put all sorts of outdoor dining. They had they cut half the street in half, and they put booths out. And it was great because it just opened that whole thing up. Right. Where the name's escaping me also, where the vegetarian restaurant is, and the not Tupelo Honey, but another restaurant like that. But anyway, it's so great outdoor dining. It became very popular in Asheville, I think.
And now we want it, right? It's like, don't take it away because we like to sit outside. I sat outside this morning for a breakfast meeting, Malaprop bookstore. They hadn't opened yet, but I was able to meet with Kendra, who was with A Look at Asheville. And so, we made do with great, they got an outdoor table and,
Well, another thing that's been great for the restaurant industry too, is that also opened up the fact that people could bring their pets with them. And some of the outdoor, it's so fun to see people dining outdoors and then bring a pet with them. So that, that changed the whole industry as well.
I think to me, it embodied kind of what Asheville is. Just come, we're here, we want you. Whether you're local, bring your pet and enjoy your favorite places. If you're a tourist, come see why we all live here and love it. It just is such a welcoming community, I think, across the board.
Well, it's funny you say that because the name is escaping me again. But I remember when we first moved to Asheville, we were walking down the street and somebody's eating and they said, it looks good. They offer us a taste. They said, you can try this. I've never seen it elsewhere, but people are actually friendly.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a dog come up and try to eat my muffin a day at my table. And I asked the owner, does he want a bite? It's the same.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about if a restaurant then joins the association, what do you recommend somebody should join?
For one, we're a very large body. One of the reasons I came to this position was hired for advocacy and my background in lobbying and advocacy. And Aaron being around 20 years, we've done an amazing job. The board, the leadership through those years to be able to sustain. And now we want to be able to give more back to our members. So what we're moving in, Mackenzie talked about housing. We're doing a little support and work with them. I was curious to hear everything she was talking about, housing and echoing a lot of the same concerns for our servers and workers in the restaurant industry. So we have an affordable housing task force. We have a jobs board that a lot of people like. So if you're a member, that's another place to put out what you need that comes and goes based on people's needs. I call it double marketing. Folks are on our website, their logo, our members' logo, and anything they want to say about their restaurant, they give us. We're not creating it for them. So our members are represented on the website. We do a ton of marketing. So then we put out who are our restaurants. We put stickers. If you go around town, I'd love for people to notice Air Member 2022. We put stickers in the window to encourage people to eat locally, eat independent. So there's a lot of things that I think you get as a collaborative voice, particularly the advocacy, which there's so many issues here on housing that we're going to work with.
I remember when I first moved to the area, one of the great things you folks had was a guide to all the restaurants in the area. Do you still have that?
That is an interesting question. And I wish you hadn't asked it. No, I'm kidding. That guide is a little expensive, but I would say with the cost of printing, we're going to do, we thought about a rack card because we use the airport and the Visitors Bureau, the Visitor Center store. But I came up with something in between, which is going to be a lovely trifold where we will list all of our members. We'll have a nice paragraph about why eat local, why eat independent. And then we'll also list all of our partners. So that's something we'll be creating in the next month. It'll be a marketing tool that we'll use over the next year or so.
Because that would be great. Because I remember when I first moved here, I didn't know any places. So I was looking for, and if it could be broken down by the type of restaurant or something, I think that'd be helpful. How difficult is it for member restaurants with the staffing issues?
Staffing is very difficult still. I've heard my members say, gosh, the back of my house is doing great. And the front of my house thought they were okay. And now they're not. And I think in this world, there's constantly something that our member owners are having to switch up. And I've come to have such huge respect for them because of that, because it's not it doesn't skate. This world doesn't skate through. You get one thing going and maybe a supply you can't get, or it's always something. And it's to the credit of the entrepreneurs in this field that it keeps going. But the staffing is a very difficult issue. And of course, getting minimum wage raise, that does help. But I think it's going to be a while till we feel comfortable. I think a lot of it has to do with COVID. I don't think it has much to do at all with our owners. I think they're doing as much as they can, but it really has to do with people's comfort level coming back to work and, just feeling like that's the world they want to be in, because it's hard to be in frontline. You're exposed to all those viruses.
It's funny you said that because I see something a little bit different that I mentioned to you. I go out a lot and I love Asheville restaurants, and I'm finding that they have some magnificent servers, and I go out of my way to recognize the servers. I have a blog. I oftentimes mention the server, but I'm seeing a couple of times, I don't know if you've seen it, they'll go into a restaurant, service is great, but because the kitchen is short-staffed, so I was into a restaurant, I won't mention the restaurant the other day, but they actually closed down for an hour because they said, we can't seat you because we can't get the food out. So they had all these servers, but it's a shame because that was their problem, and I've noticed in general, and a lot of places will put signs up, be patient. I'm not a patient eater, but they'll say, give us a break. because they can take the order quickly, but they can't get it out. So it's both the servers, but also the back end.
Well, and you find that, I found that my members, a lot of them do come from the chef world, a lot of the owners. And so they may have not directly being chef every day, but they're having to jump back into the kitchen. And that is a real issue. And I've also heard members say, yeah, we had to close down for a day. Thank goodness we have private parties that kind of kept things going financially and for the staff and things. But that's what I mean. It's always switching up.
Well, same thing too. I won't tell you the restaurant, but a couple of years ago, I went to a restaurant and I said, I want to order. No, you can only have coffee. I said, why can I only have coffee? Because the cook was out and the owner didn't know how to make anything other than the coffee,
Yeah.
But it, makes you realize what a
It
tough
sounds like
industry
a
it is.
Seinfeld episode, really.
But this actually happened. I won't mention the place. But talk a little bit about some of the cool things you also do. And one, I believe it's still available to people, but you have this great passport program. And what's that all about?
I love the passport program. So it's a dining guide locally. I tell people, think high school. A lot of our high school groups sell these dining guides. Right. But if you're a member, you get to offer your restaurant in this guide. We have about 40 or 50 restaurants in the 2022 guide. So as a member, they don't pay extra. The way I look at it is if someone uses your passport, your guide, your service, whether it's 10% off or free lunch or free dinner, buy one, get one, then you're paying at your own register to take away a little bit, but it's really a great exposure. I've heard people like early girls say, oh yeah, we love the passport. A lot of our mainstays use it and mainstay restaurants and weigh into it. So it's a dining guide. You only pay $65 for it. That price will probably be the same. I would think somewhere in that ballpark next year. Right now, a huge shout out is a buy one, get one. So go in with a friend and buy it. So what I say is in 2.5 meals, you bought your passport, but you're getting freebies all over the city. And if you think you can possibly run out of ideas of where to eat, then here's your guide. Just look in the guide and see, what have I not done?
Well, exactly. When I would buy it, that's exactly what happened, that we're having tried, and that got me into so many restaurants.
Yeah.
But explain, so the buy one, get one free.
So online, you can go on our website at airasheville.org, and it's all over the place, said, buy passport 2022. So it's good through the end of this year. Currently, it was $65, but come July 1st, we lowered it. The board agreed to do a buy one, get one. So you still pay $65, but I'm going to mail you 2 when you do that. So you could tell a friend, hey, let's get this guide, because you still have 5 months left to use it. And then we'll come out with 2023, and my goal is November 1st, and we'll sell it by the holiday.
Okay. So, and by the way, one of the great gift items, you're looking for somebody
that's what I'm hoping
to get it. It's perfect timing. And talk about also another program you had, I think you used to have, but you're thinking of starting it again. And was it Taste of Asheville?
Taste of Asheville. And I am
what's that all about?
So excited about that, Blaine. Well, you mentioned offline. So I'm a person that doesn't have restaurant background, except I had been a server before and I have worked at a hotel. But to come to Asheville, I'm going to be putting on an event I've never done before, but I have event experience in other places, and particularly festival experience. But Taste of Asheville is really our showcase of our restaurants. We're moving it to AB Tech in their conference space.
Oh, great. Yeah.
In March 9th. So just past our shoulder season. And when all of us in Asheville are like looking for what can we do for fun, we're tired of winter, we're going to give you Taste of Asheville. So sorry, lights, that is really weird. My lights came on and off. So it's going to be a 3-hour event with band and fun. And what I'm really excited about is we're going to have our 20th anniversary celebration with it. So I can't tell you the theme because we haven't rolled out the theme yet, but it's certainly in the works, and it's going to be just this super fun, come experience our restaurants. That's what it's first and foremost about. Come taste Asheville and let us display all of our wonderful restaurants to you. And then, by the way, we're celebrating an amazing 20 years.
And go back to the event itself. So I think you mentioned that. What was the date on the event?
It's going to be March the 9th. It'll be at AB Tech from 6 to 9 p.m. And we'll release more information. This is kind of the first release of that, so thank you. So we just voted on that date a couple of weeks ago, and the board has signed the contracts, and It's now rolling, but AB Tech sits on our board. Kathy Horton sits on our board, and it's great, giving us a wonderful deal on that space. And we have had we were at the venue downtown for all the years before. It's a beautiful space, but we want to grow it. So you're going to be able to see about 50 or 60, I hope. Shout out to my members to weigh in.
The nice thing about it, parking is a lot easier too.
Well, they have a parking deck, so if it's raining or snowing, you don't have to worry
Exactly.
about it.
But explain now. I guess you've never been to one. Is that correct?
No, isn't that sad?
But you've been you've heard about them. I've been to some as past. Describe what happens if somebody comes to this event.
So you buy a ticket online. We'll have to pre-sale, because the way it works is the restaurants will provide literally a taste of something of their choosing. So if I sell 800 tickets, I'm going to need 800 tastes at least. And you will come in with your one ticket to the space. You'll hear live music. I'm going to have a couple of surprises for you in terms of fun things that will be offered. And you're not going to have to buy anything else when you walk in the door. You pay for your one ticket. So it's a fundraiser. Think of it as a benefit, but also think of it as one huge room with a lot of good food in it. And just go table to table and taste.
And I'll encourage people to go to it because it's just a fun event. You know, it's just, you meet a whole bunch of people and you have a lot of good food. And I'll ask you to do me a favor if you remember, but say a month beforehand, or come back to me and we'll do another show just on that. You know,
I'd love to. Maybe we'll get a board member to come over with me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Maybe have, one of the people have their booth as well. We'll give them a mention as well. That'd be a lot of fun to do the show. Yeah. So March 9th. Talk about some of the other things that's happening with AIR over the next couple of months. Anything else happening?
Well, again, what we realized in moving forward for the next decade, I guess, if you want to look at it, what is important, I keep going back to the word sustainability. That's part of our mission statement. So collaboration, we do that really well, and we'll continue to do that throughout the city. And work with any and everybody that we can. But how do I keep our members sustainable and growing and providing all the good service they've already done? So that's going to be housing, primary. That would be a huge thing. We have 4 pillars: advocacy, education, resources, and connection. So connection is a lot of what we offer our members, and we have general meetings and ways that people connect. We do educational things, so we offer special things on HR, or CPAs come and talk to us, or we might do something on workforce diversity and equity or leadership, and that's our education component. We invite people to come in for free and just be a part of those seminars. And then the advocacy is we have an affordable housing task force that Barry Bialik of Thirsty Monk, who's also a real estate developer, helped us get started. And this task force is coming up now on August 9th. We'll finalize our mission statement and start blasting that out in terms of what we hope to do. But what we'll be looking at is financial coaching for staff of members, and helping those, Michaela mentioned, just helping people get rent, and how do you get rooted in this community? If you can't afford housing, you can never get rooted in Asheville. And if we can't get folks rooted, then we lose our wonderful restaurants because they can't keep people staffed. Like you mentioned, that is an issue. So for us, it's sustainability a lot in a lot of different areas, but primarily right now, housing is what we think we can tackle. And we'll be like many others in the city. It's a gap. It's one gap that we can fill, and we're working for our servers. Mackenzie's doing, with Haywood Congregation, there's Homeward Bound. Everybody's trying to do their part. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to do our part in housing.
I was impressed. You mentioned that you are working with Haywood Street, and you're working with some other. You mentioned another group you were working with, I think, off the air before we started. Homeward Bound. And talk a little bit about that, because again, you're going out to reach out to all these organizations. What's your thinking behind that, or how?
Well, it goes back to my own personal philosophy of wanting to be grounded in the community, and really. I feel that very much from our members and our board as well. Is I feel like everybody has a responsibility to give back, and it's a way that we can collaborate. So are we working on the same issues? I work with the chamber on it. I work with all kinds of groups, and I'm meeting with all kinds of groups, and banks are going to help us out in the financial coaching. There's just something for everybody to try to help this very big issue in Asheville be okay in the long run. And particularly now for my staff of our members. So for me, the collaboration is we can't tackle all of it, and Haywood Congregation can't, and the chamber can't, and the city can't. Everybody has doing the best they can. And so I feel like it's our responsibility, and I think our members felt, and that's why this group started a few months back, our responsibility to how can we help fill that gap. And so we're going to do our best.
And I imagine also one of the toughest parts of your job is to how to get to all these restaurants and not gain, 437 pounds, or I assume that's one of the things tough part of your job, but you try to get to as many restaurants as you can.
Well, yeah, if I can. It's, with 150, I'm going to be eating for a long time. And I hope to grow that. Yeah. We call it the Freshman 15. My neighbors and I laugh because, in my prior job, it was all online. And so I did a lot of takeout, and I did do some eating in restaurants. I got to about 40 something during COVID, but we laugh. I'm not a big person. So we laugh and say, let's take a picture of Laura when she starts this job and a year from now, the Freshman 15, and see what it looks like.
Or I can make a suggestion, you can get this passport dining thing and get to eat it,
Yeah, I got to get going.
65 other restaurants.
I've got to do lunch and dinner out.
Exactly, and breakfast,
And breakfast too.
Lest you forget. In terms of folks wanting to find out more about AIR, what's the best bet, AIR?
Okay, so it's Asheville Independent Restaurant Association. I literally start typing it, but it's airasheville.org.
Right.
We're also on Facebook. We have a new community engagement manager, Nikki Papalotta, Nikki. And Nikki comes from the restaurant world, so she's going to be a great addition. She'll be managing all of our online presence in that way. So we already do a lot online, but you'll be able to find us even more pretty soon.
Okay, and you'll also find on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Facebook, we're on Facebook. Just
Instagram.
Type in Asheville Independent Restaurant and friend us, and we have a beautiful website. We have writers, Gina Smith and Kay West, who do a monthly newsletter. So if you love food in Asheville, go on and sign up for our free newsletter. It's called Airfare. Right on our website, there's a header on the top that says Airfare. And I also really want to thank all of my board members. There's so many wonderful people involved in this organization. But I started with working with recruiter Richard Haig, and then it went on to meeting the executive board. So Carolyn Roy and Peter Pillay, who owns Pisano, and Mike McCarty, who owns Lobster Trap, and Anthony Serrato, who runs Strata and is about to open up Gemelli's. So shout out to Gemelli's. Yeah. And Kim Murray, who trained me, and Jane Anderson. It's just, there's an amazing amount of people that have been very supportive of me coming in and accepting that I literally knew nothing about restaurants in that industry, and took a chance on me.
Okay, so. Well, anyway, I'm very glad they did, and I'm very glad you were, I guess, the second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Also to McKenzie Dillingham for being my guest the first half hour, Cappy Tossetti, my producer. Look forward to having you join me each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, a whole bunch of other places, and hopefully we'll even get to meet in person at some time.
That'd be great. Thanks, Blaine.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful.